Hello Patreon backers, as always thank you for supporting us directly. Extremely helpful, especially these days with all the sort of non-sugar coated criticism we've been dishing out. But a couple questions for this one while we're still here in Tokyo, and we might have a behind the scenes video coming up for you soon. Been kind of quiet on the Patreon front just because we've been here for 2 weeks, but let's go through some of these. First one is from, I think, the Ninja, who says, what's the benefit from going to conferences like Computex? Is it mostly for pumping out videos and getting ad revenue? Are there more opportunities to meet sponsors and fill sponsor spots? Or is it mostly out of passion for the hobby? Not really a hobby, but I know what you mean. I imagine there's a lot of travel expenses involved, not to mention time away from other projects, costing money, yes, yet all of the larger tech YouTubers go to the big conferences, so there must be some profit to be made. I mean, yeah. So first of all, good call on being away from other projects costing money. That's something a lot of people overlook, I think. It's basically an opportunity cost. So there's literal financial cost, which is a lot. It's many thousands of dollars to get all the flights, to get a hotel for 2 weeks or whatever it is, and to go to the event itself. It's expensive. You have staff salaries, all that stuff too. So very expensive event to go to. And then the opportunity cost of all the stuff we could do at home that we can't do here. So as long as we make more here than there, that opportunity cost is offset. So then you just have to make back the rest of the money. So as far as going to it, as I note in the previous the rapid fire Ask Jan about Computex, which is public on the main channel, it's really fun to compete. So from that aspect, I really enjoy the events personally. It's fun to travel to places like Taiwan. I could probably do without a lot of the US events in terms of the city, but it's still fun to go there for me to do the job and compete. And I really enjoy making the videos, talking to vendors, giving feedback on new products, potentially having an impact before it comes out, getting to see everything and really think about it before it comes into the lab for testing. So I really enjoy the events, find them a lot of fun. We get to meet up with the other media outlets and try and hang out with them for whatever little time all of us have. It's really hectic, but it is a lot of fun, so I enjoy it. As far as other reasons to go there, I mean, it's as I said, seeing all the new stuff, and then you can also get some benefit from being face-to-face with people. So that's the way I got started in this industry. No one would know who we are as a media outlet if we didn't just go to things like PAX and get in front of every single vendor multiple times a year. Eventually they start recognizing you and trusting you with review products. So that's if you're trying to get into it, that's how you really get started. But yeah, that's most of it, I think. So there's some social benefit in terms of meeting with people. There is, of course, PR benefit and making sure that you're able to work with people like, for us, Cooler Master, and go there personally and say, okay, you know what, you actually did a pretty good job this time. Let's figure this out in terms of the review relationship. So there's a lot of value to it. And then, of course, yeah, you profit a bit too, either immediately or later, because otherwise you can't do it. The next question is from QuByte, who says, how much of your video content is pre-scripted, particularly in things like askgn? You'll occasionally stop mid-sentence or something similar, not a bad thing. Was just wondering if the content is scripted, if any, and if there's a script, how closely it is followed. So for anything with charts, we script stuff with a lot of numbers pretty heavily because I want to make sure that I say it correctly and don't miss anything. Because going off the cuff for that kind of stuff, I find it just does not work for my style. I'll get away from the main point and we'll never go over the numbers that need to be gone over. So that stuff is scripted. During anything like A-roll where I'm on camera, there is a script technically, but it's mostly so I can glance down and quick reference and see what needs to be talked about at a given point in the script. And then from there, I'll go off the cuff and just figure out what I feel about the product at that given time. Cases are a great example. Cases are so physical, I can just dismantle it on camera, reference the notes, figure out what I need to pull off the case, and then talk about it from there without referencing the script. That's most of it. askgn, I take notes, so I'll put, basically for the questions, if I want to make sure I actually answer these and don't just like go around in circles. So a lot of it is off the cuff like this stuff now, but I do put notes to make sure that I can get the actual answer out there first and foremost. Next one is from cerealkeller, who says, I have a question for you guys. How important is radiator thickness? You have the general surface area for your average radiator, for example, 240 millimeters, 280, etc. But from what I've seen, the average thickness of CLC rads is usually 25 millimeters, with higher examples going as thick as 96. I mean, it's obvious to say you should use as thick a radiator as you can fit, but how much does that thickness really impact thermal efficiency? Well, as long as it's not impeding airflow. So anytime you put denser fins in there or just longer fins, it acts as a bit of a flow straightener for airflow, but it's also more impedance. So anything with a low static pressure fan is going to struggle a lot with those larger radiators. Of course, the bigger limitation there is the size of it in terms of fitting in the case, but the rest of it's just going to be impedance and airflow and stuff like that. It is, in theory, better to have a larger radiator because you can radiate the heat over a larger surface area and then worry about the dissipation later. Hopefully there's enough of it. It's just that in practice, as you say, how much does it really matter? Well, a lot of the times, not a whole lot once you get into the extreme sizes unless you have some serious fans. But if you're using the same fans you're using on the small radiators, it's not going to be as much of a difference and can actually start hitting diminishing returns depending. We have some data on it, haven't published any though, something we can look into, but we've done some of the 25 millimeter versus like 50 millimeter rads, and there's actually a noticeable difference on a 120 particularly, because on 120s, this is again diminishing returns. You get to 240, 280, doesn't matter quite as much a lot of the time, but for a 120, you can really improve the efficiency to a point of dropping a couple of degrees off of the temperatures of whatever component it is, typically CPUs and what we've tested. So to the extent that it doesn't greatly impede airflow, it's helpful. And then another one from the Ninja who says, well, what's the benefit from going to conference? Oh, I got that one. Last one, Zeta, who says, thermal paste roundup when it would be nice to have something to compare to the Tom's Hardware article. Really hard to do those properly. So we've done some thermal paste testing, actually somewhat recently, and to actually show a difference is nearly impossible on traditional system components. If you see thermal paste tests with a test bench, I would question really how much outside of anything inside of, let's say, 3 or 4 degrees is really measurable as a difference, because even just applications test 1 through 3 on the same paste, it's going to have variance of a couple degrees because systems just have so much room for changing voltages and all this different. So you have different voltage states for the CPU, you have vCore, you have vMesh, you have the cache voltages, you have VSOC, all that stuff. And if any of it's auto, then it's unreliable. And we've done thermal paste testing. It's hard to find more than a 2 degree difference. So a lot of the time the answer is it's all the same functionally. So to truly show a difference, we have some ideas. We'd have to build a custom setup for it, and you exit what is perceived as real world and start getting into synthetic, but that's the only real way to show a difference. No plans currently. We have ideas like noted, but just haven't done anything to move on it yet because it's a lot of work to really get that working. So we'll focus on the fan stuff once we get home first, power supplies, and then worry about that later. So that's it for this one. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for helping out on Patreon. If you're not subscribed, you should be definitely. Otherwise, leave questions in the Patreon Discord. I'll see you all next time.